Okay, looks like we're recording. So thank you everyone for joining. Thank you everyone who's listening in to the recording. I'm Mika Kayt. I'm the CEO and founder of Outgage. I'll introduce Outgage in depth in just a second, but generally we're an engagement platform using gifting as a marketing channel. And with us is Maggie Tonkin. Maggie is an expert in ABM and field marketing, and specifically in gifting. Maggie, we probably work together in at least, I don't know, 3 to 4, if not 5, places on gift marketing. You definitely were before your time and exceeded a lot of the strategies that we now know today could be more of a plug and play versus what they used to be as a growth hacking tactic, which is why Maggie is also an Outgage advisor. So thanks for joining, and thanks for also being willing to share some case studies that we've done together in the past to sort of share how gifting could be done in a more thoughtful and strategic way. And that's it. We'll go into it, and we'll talk about a few things. I'll introduce Outgage a little bit more in depth. We'll talk about the power of strategic gifting. Hopefully, whoever's joining us today is a believer in how gifting works, but also I'm sure needs and wants to prove it out with actual data. So we'll talk about that. We'll also talk about how it could be a scalable revenue engine, how to elevate your ABM and field marketing through gifting, and we'll sum up with how Outgage is a little bit different and how we might be able to help some folks out there that are thinking of gifting but don't really know how to approach it. So generally what differentiates us, because I'm sure whoever has done gifting in the past knows that there are a lot of different possible ways to send gifts if it's working directly with vendors or different gifting services. Where we come in, and I think, David, this is timely that we're talking with you because I think that in the age of AI, there is sort of an overbearing question about, where businesses are going and what differentiates people. I think that there is a lot of noise and clutter out there, and a lot of people don't have the capacity to obviously be experts in everything. And this is where Outgage comes in to be the expert in gifting for marketing. So we're specifically built for marketing use cases. We're AI and data driven, which means that instead of spraying and praying or just doing, what we've done for the past probably 50 years in gifting, which is think about a cool gift. We do have some strategies and data that helps us help our customers put together more predictive campaigns based on what we've already seen work from millions of data points that have gone through us until now. And besides that, hopefully Maggie can attest to it. We're fun to work with. We believe in partnering and just working person to person versus sending you to a marketplace to lose yourself in. We're helpful from start to finish. So besides our platform that has hundreds of thousands of branded goods, e-gifts, donations, really anything that's legal to gift, you name it, we're tied to it. We close the loop with online, actionable, measurable landing pages that are customizable in real time. And we help you measure everything, integrate it back into your marketing automation platforms and systems. And from the get-go, we're helpful in actually building out the creative strategies, like I started mentioning before. Our customers have seen amazing results, over 10x engagement from other marketing channels that they have tried. They've attested to 12x ROI on campaigns done with Outgage. It does say 80% time send, but I will say that a lot of customers will attest to the fact that they wouldn't be able to do campaigns without us because of the time frame they need to launch the campaign in and all of the
Absolutely.
elements
I
that
can
would need to
attest
happen.
to this, Mika.
Right.
So,
Exactly.
one of the things, just to add on to Mika with the time savings, one of the things with the companies I've been at, a lot of times, as you guys are probably well aware, a lot of creative is shared services. So there's so many different priorities that a gifting campaign or a direct mail campaign, that priority set tends to fall lower. So if I want to get something out in quarter or in a couple weeks, that was always a huge, huge aspect. I wouldn't be able to do these types of activities or campaigns within ABM strategies, field strategies, etc., without Mika and her team. And another thing, Mika, I wanted to add when you mentioned attest to this, I will definitely talk about this in the couple case studies a little bit further on. But when Mika says Outgage is truly built for marketers, I cannot stress that point enough. There are so many different um, types of campaigns you can run with gifting that are maybe meant more for sales or are thought of like sales first. This is truly a marketer's platform, and all of the goals and strategies that marketers are thinking about and trying to accomplish. Outgage really helps you every step of the way, which we'll kind of talk about when we dig into some of those case studies.
Thanks for giving that take, Maggie, because it's hard to say that somebody would attest to it without actually being on your other side. So we appreciate the feedback, obviously, and it's good to hear that it's not just in my head. Um, what we've noticed, and actually, Maggie, do you want to talk to this? Because I know that you've also done more than just gift campaigns. So maybe you want to actually talk to this point in terms of the challenges and why would you even want to run a gifting campaign?
Absolutely. I'll definitely talk about this. So one of the biggest challenges we all face as marketers is cutting through the noise, the clutter. How do you break through? Um, a lot of times with the companies I've been involved in, actually one in particular, which I'm going to do a case study on, I brought in and I was basically told you need to prove every bit of ROI from every tactic you're doing. And actually talking about partnering with Outgage, I went to Mika kind of frantic. I'm gonna have to cut all my budget spend. You have to help me find the data points I need. And when we actually went and looked at all of the different channels that and tactics that we were executing, direct mail was always the highest engagement and always proved the most ROI. You can kind of see that here from the numbers on how low some of those tactics we do in marketing. And don't get me wrong, I am a really, really big believer in integrated marketing. So I think there is a place for every single one of these tactics. But one of the things I have done time and time again at multiple organizations I have been at, I come in, people think of gifting. I love gifting. I literally have a storage crate in my basement of all the gifts I've done over the years, just as examples. They're so much
Oh,
fun.
I've seen it a couple of
Um,
times.
yeah. But I come in and when you say direct mail or gifting, people tend to think of the very old traditional direct mail or the postcard mailer, things like that. And they don't believe in it. So I came up with this concept I like to call the lumpy mail. So if you think about anytime you order anything and it gets delivered to your doorstep, whether you forgot you ordered it or you remember it's coming, you get kind of excited. You have a package to open. Well, that's what the theory I kind of came up with this lumpy mail. You get excited to get something. It's not going to sit on your desk. You're going to be excited to dig into it or see how does this connect to what you're like. I just got a whiskey kit. Why did I get a whiskey kit? I'm in marketing. Like just to connect of how do these dots connect together, and you really do get so much more engagement with these type of gifting campaigns.
Yeah, and obviously, Maggie, I'll just add to that. I know that we're going to talk about it even more in a few slides. But regarding the lumpy mail, there's a lot of research showing like the need to reciprocate. And I think that you're right. Like you're talking about the excitement and what it does to you. I think that forever in our lives, whenever we got a package, it was, an emotional sort of thing. So we're just wired to understand that this is something that we need to send a thank you note for or understand who it was from. Like it was always for birthdays or holidays, or when have you ever gotten a gift in your life before this type of thing? And how do you feel about that? And how do you react to that? And I think that that's what we're like sort of it'll sound terrible, but we're activating with people, right? Like you're not only yet another email trying to get in front of them, you're thoughtful, you thought about them, and you put in extra effort to really get in front of them, which means something to a lot of people.
Absolutely. Mika, I also think it's important as marketers as we're all here as marketers, I tend to put myself in the position of the people we're reaching out to. If
Right,
I'm going to get Actually, I'll be very honest, my inbox right now probably has more emails in it than I want to announce publicly. That
right.
said, I'm going to miss them or they're going to get filtered into trash or whatever it may be. So I tend to think of that when I'm doing campaigns and what tactics can we surround gifts with and different things like that that I'm going to engage with as well. So I challenge all of you on the call as well as you're doing campaigns, especially with strategic gifting. What would kind of ignite your emotion? What would get you to respond?
Oh, that's a good question. Okay, I want answers later on the Q&A for whoever wants to share. Um, so to that point, we are talking about the challenges with other marketing channels. And Maggie, I think it's a really good shout out. It's not like, hey, don't do anything else now, right? You still want awareness. Every channel has a benefit. You want to do multiple touch points. This is just, and we use this a lot in ABM, and I think that there's a reason for that. It's obviously used for other marketing strategies, but this is saying, hey, how can we take that extra step? And since we're already smarter today, and it's not just that regular spray and pray funnel of, sending out tens of thousands of emails and hoping it sticks, but I know I'm trying to get in front of David Berkowitz, for instance. I know he's my decision maker, and I want to land that account and expand within it. How do I interest David Berkowitz? Like, how do I not just fall in one email? So maybe I'll get 100 out of the 100,000 emails to respond to me. Are they the relevant ones? Are they the ones that I'm trying to get in front of? And for the ones that I know are worth the effort and the ROI, how do I make that extra step to get in front of them? So it looks like it works because there are a lot of stats around it, besides an Outgage that have already talked about gifting within Outgage. And Maggie, you've seen this quite often. Like when we do it in a smart way and depending on where they're at in the funnel, we've seen anywhere between 5 to 97% engagement, with the majority being over 35% engagement. And that really depends on what your goal is. There is a difference of what we're expecting from marketing engagements versus sales, obviously. But, a much higher number than what we're talking about when we're talking about an email blast and all of that. Um, so,
Absolutely, Mika. I'm going to add to that too. You mentioned ABM, and I think that's a really good call out here because traditionally people in marketing have thought of gifting programs as only that one-to-one ABM type play. And what we're talking about today, is really how you could take those gifting strategies and apply them to different goals to achieve your targets and what you're trying to accomplish. ABM has kind of just become the way you need to do marketing. It is definitely still there is still that one-to-one type of play, but really when you are reaching out to even the masses, you still have to have some personalized type element, which is where gifting is really really successful because as Mika talked about, it does tap into that like emotional type of response. So I think that's really important to note as well. The other thing I will say with the 2 to 3 times increase in like meeting acceptance rates, as I mentioned when we were just chatting, we're going to talk through all of the different types of workflows, what your goal may be, the type of gifting campaign you should do. But I think it's also really important to note that a strategic gifting campaign like we're discussing, and then a sales gift, meaning a follow-up to a meeting or I'm going to send you a coffee gift card to take a meeting with me. There are definitely places for that as well. And I will be completely honest with you, in any given campaign, I have both of those types of campaigns running at one time. I will have the strategic marketing type gifting campaign. I will also have the sales, kind of doing some sales led gifting campaigns as well. But I think it's really important to note the differentiation here. And as we go through the examples, it'll be easier to tell what we mean by the strategic gifting.
Yeah. And, Maggie, I think that that's really important to say. It's not an either or. Sales is one place in the funnel, and that's the one-to-one. And then think about the rest of the marketing funnel in a sense, like the one to few and the one to many, more is like, hey, we always wanted to build real relationships. People buy from people, not from businesses, right? I can't take my 500 accounts out to dinner this month, but I can add a personal touch for 500 people. And how do I do that at scale with really providing a message that gets in front of them without it feeling bribey? Like we know that there's a lot of criteria here. We don't want to just send somebody a Rolex and say, hey, talk to us. But
Would I be
uh,
part of that campaign? No, I'm kidding.
oh, sorry, you weren't part of that. But like we understand that there's a lot of criteria, but how do we give people that like you see me feeling this was thoughtful enough for me to get back to you. This was thought-provoking enough at scale. And I think that that's sort of where the one to few and one to many gifting can come in. And this brings us to the next slide anyways. So uh, we definitely see gifting as a pipeline accelerator. That's throughout the whole funnel, right? So we're talking about not only like you're saying, Maggie, at the end with the conversion, but and you've used this many times, and we've seen this with our other customers. It could be anywhere from awareness, it could be MQLs to SQLs, but it could also be retention, expansion, upsell, cross-sell, um, and referral campaigns that we've also seen. Literally anything else, right?
Absolutely. I think the key with gifting as a pipeline accelerator, you have to look at, and this is kind of the piece about gifting we haven't discussed, and that's budgets. And we are all very aware of our budgets right now. When you're using gifting in an awareness type play, which Mika's mentioning, and I actually have one of the examples I'm going to talk about is exactly that. You just have to think of the cost your gift you're sending. To Mika's example, you're not going to send Rolex to 5,000 contacts you're trying to get in touch with. So it's really just when you're choosing that gift and you're choosing that overall strategy. And that's really where Outgage comes to play as well. In my examples, I literally will go to Mika and say, Mika, I need 5,000 new leads. This is my criteria. Here's my budget. What is something we can do to get in front of these people? Or I may come to her and say, Mika, I have 100 accounts who had open pipeline with us and they've stalled. Help me come up with something to progress these forward. So it really does depend on what your goal is, but 100%, one of the things I've done even at like in past recent months is looking at gifting not only from just creating those leads, but looking at when did we launch the campaign and how has the pipeline, how has the stages changed. So looking at timelines, like a month from now, 2 months from now, how is that opportunity progressing? How is that pipeline accelerating through the funnel? So gifting has definitely been a big part of that, and you get a lot of engagement with it, and we see really good results.
Yeah. No, I think that that's right on the money. Um, how would you, to the second point here, Maggie, I don't know if you can share, but can you share like cases where gifting was sent exactly at the right moment? Because I know, uh, some people that we've worked with at the beginning, they come to us and they're like, okay, we just want to sort of try and send some gifts and see if anything sticks. And at the end of the day, it's also like you're saying, ABM is just the way we need to market right now. Because people forget there's a lot of noise around us. We have a lot of things going on. And then maybe you sent somebody a gift at the beginning of the year and they're like, yeah, 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 cool. I couldn't get to it. and later on they forgot about it, and that's sort of it. So how do we talk about more of where this actually fits in as part of a journey to get people at different points in time, maybe qualify them when they're ready, when they're not ready? How do we actually use gifting as um, a qualifier, I guess, and not just as a one-off tactic that gets lost in terms of let's send out 100 gifts. If it works, it works. Because I feel like a lot of people look at it that way.
Mhm.
And I want to say you probably know to say how that's missing the mark, or maybe it's not. Maybe, that's the test to do.
I think again, it depends on what your goal is. For example, there are different cases where marketing could be. I'm just going to give an example of something that's kind of, I have not done this yet, but it's something on my mind. But there's an AI watch list, like companies that are up and coming in the AI market. Now, doing a really cool gifting campaign to those companies, like that is something that may get you on their radar. But now, the reason I would say sending 100 gifts as a one off is a miss is because, and this is where the old tale of sales and marketing has to come into play. We are no longer in the world where sales and marketing can have this like gap between them. You have to be in such lockstep with sales. And that is something that with gifting, especially, is so important, especially as you use gifting to move through the funnel or qualify. After that gift is delivered, I mean, we're marketers, we're not magicians. We can send the gift, we can have the perfect strategy, but unless we have sales following up at all the right moments, obviously we are all amazing marketers. So we're going to have a follow up strategy in place to tell sales when they should follow up, what they should be doing, etc. But without that happening, sending 100 gifts, this is totally my opinion since we are being recorded, but sending just 100 gifts and a one-off calling done is a waste of your budget. You may get a couple people that are just interested or maybe just wanted the gift, so may reach out, but you're not going to really be getting those qualified people. As when you send the gift, you have sales follow up. Maybe you even have a sales gift, like I mentioned kind of at the beginning, a coffee gift card or something like that, even a little bit later on, but making sure you have a full campaign built out. And again, as we get to those examples, Mika, you can actually see how we have workflows and how Outgage, one of the biggest things I will tout about Outgage all day long is the workflows that they have set up and built based on what your goal is for that campaign.
Yeah, and I
That
could
was a
share a
really long answer. Did
small
I answer
anecdote.
your question?
Yeah, no, you did. I think that's right on. Like I wasn't expecting that, but you're right. How do we actually continue that experience to even just capitalize on that gift later? I do think that it needs to be sent in multiple touch points to catch people at different times, depending on the company budget and how much a customer is worth and all of that. And that we usually go into that when we talk about the goals and everything. For us, just as a few examples, we definitely drink our own champagne. We've sent gifts to different potential customers of ours. And I have multiple stories where we sent, I don't know, we had like a locked, actually, Maggie, this is a campaign that you ran similarly. We did something a little bit different, but we did a locked cookie jar that was all plain vanilla cookies besides one red velvet cookie in order to unlock your cookie jar and stand out without Gage, you needed to either take a call from us or learn more. And at the end of it, we wanted people to have a good experience. So we sent them codes later anyways. But we had at least two marketers that were so impressed by the gift and the message. They couldn't work with us at the time. It wasn't the right timing. They didn't have budgets and all of that. We kept in touch with everybody down the road, and we also reminded them, and they're like, oh yeah, of course I remember that. And we worked with at least a few of them a couple of years after that, which was amazing because we really made that impression on them with just that instance and using gifting as a message. So to your point, it is about following up. and the sales cycle. Did you want to say anything else about this, or should we move forward? Okay.
You can keep me forward.
And soon we're going to get to the case studies. I do want us to get there because I feel like we're talking about it a lot. And you know what? Maybe we'll even hop over to that and we can hop back because I feel like we're doing a build up and maybe people want an example of what we're actually
No,
talking
I
about.
agree. And sitting through going to conferences and sitting on webinars, I think it's always so great information, and then you want to know how to use it and you never get that piece. So I agree. Let's jump in. I actually there's two case studies that I'm going to walk through, and then I know Mika has one a little more virtual that she's going to walk through. So the first one I'm going to walk through, it was a demand generation campaign. It was a locked workflow. So again, I've mentioned a couple times Outgage's different workflows. So, based on what the goal of your campaign is, whether it's to drive leads or um, get in touch with C-level, because there is absolutely a different workflow when you're trying to reach out to executives, that is going to change what your workflow is. So the goal of this campaign was ultimately to get leads. We had, when I was at Reich, we had a huge database and half of them we just had no contact with. A little bit more background just for anybody that doesn't know, Reich is a project management platform similar to like Monday.com or Asana, big competitors of theirs. I was hired there. They had only ever done inbound marketing. So I was hired to start their outbound program. So these were really, not only was this the first time they had ever done marketing like this was the first time sales was ever used to working like this. They were used to just getting kind of leads that came through their set a demo type website. So the goal was to get some of these new leads that we had in our system to ask to chat, get them to learn about us. So what we did is we sent out, kind of similar to what Mika was talking about, but we sent out two different candies that were in a locked acrylic box that was branded with Reich with a postcard about 4 times the productivity is pretty sweet. So again, we tied the gift to the message. We sent this out. The whole idea was the postcard drove the leads to a landing page. They each had a specific URL that they would go to, because when they were on that landing page, they then, once they clicked learn more, ask to chat, they then got the code to unlock their candy. Now, I always get this question when I give this example, so I am just going to say, yes, if someone really wanted to take a hammer to the acrylic box, they could take a hammer and they could break it. I'm going to be really honest with you. That seems like a lot of work to get to some candy, or maybe even having some like plastic shards in your candy.
Right.
So we saw really high engagement. We saw at least 41% actually click on the button to learn more. Now, does that mean we had 41%, like of everyone, did we get pipeline from 41%? No. But this was the engagement, which was extremely high, higher than any tactic we had done in our outbound marketing efforts at this point. So one thing I will say, after we sent this, I then had a cadence set up for our BDR team because with Outgage, you actually see all of the analytics. So we knew when the mailers were shipped out. We knew when they landed on the doorstep. We knew when someone went to the landing page, but maybe they didn't click ask to chat. So our BDR team actually had a cadence set up for every one of those points. And I was working with them weekly, talking about, okay, here's the list, here's who did this, here's who did that. And then they followed up with those people to continue to increase the engagement and ultimately increase the pipeline that came from this campaign. Mika, is there anything you want to add that I forgot on this?
No, I think that you hit most of it. I think that you guys also sent out the code later. Like, I think the idea was, yes, they could break it, but
Yes.
it's just an interesting experience to get in
Yes.
front of them, and it was interesting enough. Also, it was interesting that you did the follow-ups with the BDRs. I will say that that's a trick point that we see with a lot of customers, which is actually more of a question to you, because we have the marketing integration. So sometimes marketers might prefer to automate it and have the control to just streamline based on the actions, the follow-ups. And on the other hand, and this is, regardless of gifting actually, but I do think that it does, bear a question. Um, Being at the mercy and the help of the BDRs and the SDRs to follow up because it's a much more personal reach out to
Agree.
go through that,
It's
but you
actually
don't
a great
control.
question because you don't have
Yeah.
control. It is a great question. And actually, it is a huge point. I usually do both. So I will always have an automated follow up from whatever marketing automation system you're using. I always have an automated follow up set up. But I do think it's really important for, again, we talking about ABM and everything. That's just the way of marketing nowadays. You have to have that personalized point. So I
Right.
do think it's really important to partner with the BDRs as well, but also to make sure you are getting everything out of your marketing dollars. You don't want to spend X amount of money on this and then it be wasted because your BDR team decided they had something better to do than follow up with this campaign. So I do think it is very important to include a an automated follow up as well, but then have those touch points from the personalized BDRs as well. Now, the other thing I actually didn't mention, I'm looking at the icon of the computer screen with the landing page, and I really wish we could double click and blow it up so you guys could see. One thing, Mika alluded to this at the beginning, but the other big thing with these marketing campaigns, the landing page is not just a form fill. It is not an address collection. It is not just give me your name, title, company, because obviously we're sending them a mailer. We should know that. Um, the landing page actually told Reich's story. Like we put different bullets and maybe it even linked to different articles. Obviously, in this case, our call to action was to ask to chat. So we didn't have it link out to anywhere else. That was the only call to action we wanted. But we did have information on that page as to why they should ask us to chat, which I think is a really big differentiator, not only in Outgage, but in some of the more successful direct mail campaigns I've seen.
Yeah, it's important that we have a coherent journey, right? Which is why we have the real-time custom landing pages. Here's another case study. Maggie, if you
Yes,
want to talk
this
to it, and
one
then we'll
I
take another. Oh, sorry.
No, you're fine. This one I'm particularly excited about because this is kind of a flip. This is no longer looking at demand. I mean, it's all demand gen, but this isn't looking at net new demand gen. This was actually from a customer side looking at growth and upsell, which is something I know sometimes customers don't get as much love on that side. It's more on the sales side. So this was a particularly cool campaign. At the time, Zendesk, we had one particular area where one particular product most of our customers were in, but we had so many other products we were expanding to and new ones coming out all the time. So what we did is we reached out to our customer base with these, as you could see, the 3 round circles. They were actually drone targets. So it was a game. On the back of each target explained what that product was. So at the time, Zendesk had just rebranded into what they called relationships. So each product had a shape with it. So you had the shape and product on the front, which had like a target, and then on the back, a little bit more about the product. And ultimately, the message was around hitting your customer support targets with Zendesk. Now, the workflow for this one, in order to get them to engage, instead of just giving them a gift and hoping they call us, it directed them to a personal landing page. On the landing page, if they reached out to us, if they clicked the link, they then got a personalized drone. So they got a drone to play the game that we sent them with the targets. So this one was a really, really cool one. People were really excited about it. We actually had 46% engagement. So 46% of the people we sent it to clicked on that link to get their personalized drone. And then again, from there, we had an entire follow-up cadence, both automated and personalized from sales, to continue to follow up with these people. What product were they actually interested in? So we could customize that sales path for them after that.
Yeah, and you also like what I love about this example is that in this landing page, for instance, The first one was an ask to chat. You could keep it as simple as that. But here you also qualified the lead. So you allowed them to either request a demo, which was integrated into their account manager's Calendly link, like you had multiple account managers, right? Or you could download a white paper and learn more. And in both cases, they would have received the Zendesk branded drone. But what's important with that is that as opposed to just saying, hey, take a call with us, get $100 on Amazon, which maybe, may be helpful in some situations. You're making for a better experience in this part of the funnel for both the recipient and for you guys as a company because you're qualifying them. You're not letting everybody go to sales, even if they don't really want to, or they know that they're not right for sales. You're not wasting sales time. You're not wasting their time. And you're giving them an experience that they feel okay with, as opposed to like, hey, I just wanted the gift, but let's pretend that I want
Absolutely.
to
Yeah,
talk to
that's
you.
what I was just gonna say. That's a huge point on the qualifying because how many times have you received attend this webinar and get XYZ or meet with me and get XYZ? And there are definitely some qualified people that come from that 100%. But then you do also get a lot of people that just want the gift. So this because we were also working with customers, it was a little bit of a higher value gift. We definitely wanted to qualify and make sure we were sending the right people with sales to spend their time with.
Yeah, that's a good point. And to the point of like different workflows, because, sometimes you don't know their addresses. Maybe you do an address collection, all of that. In this case, where do e-gifts come into play? Maybe it's for webinars to up, the take on the webinar, but maybe it's also we have customers that want to delight their customers for the holidays and just for retention purposes. For those cases, what we like to do is also take care of the user experience and make sure it's the best we possibly can give. This is an example where a different customer, Natural Intelligence, wanted to gift their customers for the holidays, but we know how much of a lift that could be, especially if you have a global customer base. What they were able to do is send one link that allowed their customers to choose their country and select from relevant gift cards according to the criteria and the message that Natural Intelligence wanted to give. In this case, they had over 71% redemption. And what they had on this landing page to continue that engagement, because we know that it's just a thank you, but they have, great personal relationships with their customers. They wanted a place for their customers to engage back with their reps and either thank them or say happy holidays. And they had over 54% of people who did that, which in turn was helpful for them with just maintaining and expanding those customer relations. So we can talk on and on. I know that we only have about 18 minutes, so I will take a pause and Maggie and I could go back to some items. Um, we could talk about, what Outgage does, but before we go into that, I do want to pause and see if there's any Q&A that we can dig into in case there are specific areas of interest.
Any questions from those attending live? I guess just generally though, I mean, there's some really creative examples here, and I also I just love the idea of a kind of like two-parter in general. Yeah, make things like a little bit more of a game. I yeah, just yeah, I get so wrapped up in various kinds of like whodunits and mystery shows. And I think everyone loves just like even if it's a basic thing, right? Like unlocking a candy box, right? It just brings like a little bit of that escape room vibe into your home or your office, and
That's
and it's
exactly it.
memorable, and I think it doesn't always take much. I mean, as brilliant as it is, not to dismiss it, right? But it doesn't take a lot to just stand out and surprise someone in a really good way, and also show really thoughtful case of it. Like, are are there any times when someone's like trying to come up with some example or whatever, and you're like, yeah, this just isn't going to work, and maybe you should do something else instead?
Yes.
You want to clarify without
A
naming.
100%. And that's just because of the experience that we already have. So we actually have some really funny stories as well. We can get into it, but uh we know to say, let's just say it this way. We know to say when you shouldn't send locked gifts, for instance, to people, when it's not going to work. Um, and how it's not going to work. Also for different seniorities, like what would be appreciated and what wouldn't. What statistically makes sense, but also there's criteria around it, right? So here's an example we sort of touched upon. Some companies are not allowed to receive certain value gifts, but some people also don't feel comfortable with it. So we don't necessarily want to say, hey, here's some money, let's talk. It's very transactional. And this is where gifting done right comes into play. So you don't want to be that cheapo throwaway product, but you definitely need the messaging to make sense. And it needs to um, be aligned to your audience, which is what we have a lot of experience with at this point in time, as well as what Maggie's saying, which is the workflows. And Maggie, do you want to talk about a couple of examples that work
I
into?
do. So one thing I really want to call out when it comes to the workflows, you have to keep in mind you can't ask people to do too much, because unless you're sending them, to Mika's example at the beginning, a Rolex, you can't give people a 50 questionnaire and expect them to be excited about opening a box of candy. Like, you really have to make sure what you are asking them to do as a part of that workflow fits kind of the gift as well. One of the things I've found, the more you can play with nostalgia and different things that spark those emotions, that is going
Yeah,
to be better than to what Mika was saying, some of those money type gifts. Some really funny examples. You shouldn't send chocolate in the summer. We've had some
right.
fun melty issues there. I actually have an example of where the bomb squad was
Not with
called
her. Yeah.
because something opened up and leaked all over. So, I mean, there's definitely some learnings that have happened. So you do have to think, but again, I wouldn't expect the average marketer to know that. That is really where your gifting partner Outgage in this example comes into play, is to know, like, yeah, you shouldn't send chocolate. It's July and that's not a good idea. So there are some definitely funny ones. Another one I will say, we're a two-parter. Now, I did not send this, but my company received this. It was a two-parter, which in theory is great, but the first part was so blah that no one was excited for the second part, and actually were kind of upset by it.
I
And
wonder what it
frankly,
was.
I don't know if you remember this, because I did talk to you about this, Mika. It would have been really cool because it was sending like a really cool etched box, and then you would get the wine if you asked for the meeting. But
Totally.
in hindsight, it was like you open this box and you're like,
It's empty.
well, what's there? Like, what's supposed to happen here? So
Yeah.
there are definitely where areas where it could be a miss. But again, that's where an amazing gifting partner comes into play. I did see another question actually in the chat regarding how we're identifying the accounts that you send gifts to. Now, this really depends on what your goal is. So I have done smaller campaigns like the candy box. I had a very, very large list. And frankly, we were looking at the majority of our prospects we were trying to reach at the time. Now, when you're doing larger, more high dollar type campaigns, 100% intent is huge. Actually, most of the campaigns I'm doing now, I am looking which accounts are on our target list, but then of those target accounts, which ones are engaging. The reason my campaigns have transformed over my career from when I started and the campaign I ran at Reich to some of my more recent campaigns is simply because we are in a very different market right now. Budgets are different, things like that. So there's less of the awareness campaigns I'm doing right now and more of the driving through the funnel. So that is absolutely where I would 100% recommend using intent data. Now, that said, unless you're doing a campaign to like wake the dead, you already have your list. You already have the opportunities that have stalled over the past year. So it really does depend on what your goal with the gifting campaign is. I hope that answers your question.
And Maggie, you know what? Just to add to that, and this is more of like if you need to prove the worth type of thing, we know that in awareness or down the funnel, gifting does have a lift over other channels. That being said, probably like for any other marketing channel with open opportunities, you're gonna, or sorry, with warm leads and with customers that have already engaged with you, you'll see a higher lift than you'll see with net new. Again, reasonably, like any other first touch point. So if you need to prove it out and you're afraid of spending the higher dollars for a new channel type of thing, I would start with like the warmer leads or the engaged customers, especially like you're saying, during this time in the market.
Mm-hmm. There is something also we actually didn't touch on, but David, this kind of goes to your question of when maybe gifting doesn't work. I would be very careful, and I'm probably saying something everybody on this call knows, but I would be very careful at what stage someone is in the pipeline and sending gifts. So, for example, depending on your sales cycle and funnel, there's usually a certain cutoff stage for me. And if it's past that stage, they're no longer included in any gifting campaigns because you don't want it to be seen, as Mika had said earlier, like a bribe or, hey, I'm giving you money, come with us, that type of thing. So while I do think gifting is really important for moving down the funnel and acceleration, it is very important too that if you're in an active opportunity cycle or sales cycle with an account, you're very careful about when you include them in gifting campaigns, when you don't, etc.
Well, I didn't think about that. So you wouldn't include somebody who's actively closing with you, or where would you cut that off?
So it's usually when they're in the like decision negotiation phase that I cut them off, to where they're like making their final decision on are they going with us or another one. Like we've had those final discussions and it's really up to them at that point. Sales can still be calling and doing that kind of stuff, but it gets a little bit, in my opinion, and at the companies I have been at, we have chosen to not send gifts after that, just simply because we are getting more into that bribery, and you never want to kind of toe that line, especially because there are a lot of, yeah.
But after they become customers, you would go for it.
Yes.
Like onboarding
100%.
gifts. Yeah.
Yes, 100%.
But you're
It's a
saying
very, very
bad
small window.
feeling.
It's a very small window.
Yeah, it's like a bad feeling where they're like thinking, that's interesting. Because I'll say we have seen different approaches, but I can see what you're saying where it could be like, hey, I just need a second type of thing. And now you're like sending me things and not anyways, it's like any human relation, right? You don't want to be the needy.
You don't want to be the needy girlfriend in the relationship.
Yeah. Yes.
Also, add that to a list of things that could not be said by male speakers. But
exactly. Just thinking that, I'm like, good thing it wasn't David who said that.
Yeah, I could do the needy boyfriend line. We're just as bad.
Exactly. Okay, fair enough. Anything you think that we didn't touch on, Maggie? I know that we went through a few slides here, but that you think is important. I know that we didn't talk too much about A/B testing, which is harder with gifts. So we will talk about that for just a minute. First of all, what you're seeing here is the Outgage experience besides the human factor where we actually help you guys with the strategy, but anywhere from creating with the hundreds of thousands of branded goods, e-gifts, and donations we have, delivery, we help with optimizing for engagement through deduplication of within the campaign, externally to the campaign, helping with address verification and corrections, for instance, zip code corrections, or letting you know if that address has not received a package in the past 5 years or so. So maybe it doesn't make sense to send. Engagement, the real-time landing pages, which Maggie mentioned, at the end of the day, we know that you as marketers don't have all of the resources internally at the tip of your finger. Hopefully we can help out with some of that. And we know we have for some of our customers to be able to turn around and close the loop on these campaigns with the landing pages, and then measurements based on everything you configured in the campaign. So depending on the workflow and all the items that could happen, like Maggie mentioned before, if it's shipping and tracking, ETA and delivery, or the online engagements, you'll see that all in one place, and that could be sent back to your systems. With the A/B testing, we're big proponents of duplicating campaigns and changing things up. Maybe it's not the gift itself, depending on the type of gift you're sending. But a lot of times the messaging and the workflows we will test out depending on the amount of people. And I think that that's something to consider, because a lot of times people go into a campaign and it's so hard to put together one campaign who's thinking about segmenting and testing out different campaigns. And this is where technology is helpful and where a partner could be helpful in allowing you to do things quicker, more measurable, and probably more cost efficient from the get-go versus just testing a one-off tactic, throwing spaghetti at the wall pretty much and hoping it sticks.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess we'll stop there unless, again, Maggie, you have anything to add, or David, if you wanted us to touch upon anything else.
I'm glad you came to this slide, Mika, because I think this is just an important slide, kind of summarizing everything we talked about. Just gifting is a super powerful revenue accelerator. If it's not something you're doing, or you're not doing it at the scale strategic capacity, I highly recommend it to increase engagement in your campaigns. The personalized automation and scaling, we've kind of talked about that. That's kind of necessary in marketing nowadays. And then again, just Outgage is a fantastic vendor and partner in the way that they differentiate the gifting market from the workflows, the custom landing pages. The majority of the gifting campaigns I have run, and I will be very, very transparent. I know I am an advisor of Outgage, but I've worked with many gifting companies. The majority of my most successful campaigns have been run with Outgage simply because of the tracking of workflows and the different two-part campaigns or a locked campaign, things of that nature, which really drive more of that engagement.
Thanks, Maggie. And for whoever wants to see what that type of gifting strategy could be for you, we're here to offer a one-on-one consultation, and we can show you what that could look like.
Great. Well, this is tremendous. I mean, I love learning a lot. I love seeing examples like this that I just honestly haven't come across elsewhere. And I think there's just so much creativity in different parts, even like how this fits in with ABM. Like, it's not always intuitive. We just see so much like the same, like ad retargeting and things like that, and don't often think about the bigger picture of like, what are we trying to do to go and convert key accounts, right? So, so I think going back, starting with what goal do you have for ABM overall, and usually those are pretty similar, and then looking at an expanded scope of how to get there is really key. And so yeah, I love what you're doing here. Appreciate both of you sharing all these insights, and look forward to sharing this with many others.
Thanks, David. Appreciate the opportunity to speak with you and your community, and yeah, hope we get to speak with others in the community and spread the word.
Sounds good. Well, glad to have you as part of the community as well.
Thanks, David.
You know.